Hello and welcome to the Sussex Studio Experience podcast. I am your host, Professor Zinzi, and today we're going to be talking about, if we take a look at our thumbnail, we can see what's up there. Racism is the fire. Why Meghan escaped the palace. That's our title. And we're going to delve a little bit deeply into some of the things that are adjacent to that. So let's get ready to go. Today we're going to begin with, as we normally do, a non-denominational prayer. And today I wanted to get into, instead of the breathing exercise, I wanted to do a grounding exercise. So grounding exercises work often for people who are, when they're in certain spaces, they're unable to stop and in the middle of, for example, the grocery store, in the middle of, for example, a mall, in the middle of, and when you're in work doing something, you can't always stop to do a breathing exercise. So what I wanted to do is what I ask for my clients to often do is I teach them grounding exercises. So first, what you would do is I would say, okay, can you identify the color green in the space? And so when you're looking around, you look around right now. So look around in the space, and this helps with anxiety, especially. So see if you can identify the color green, let's say 5 times. 2, 3, 4, 5. And now try and identify the color black. 2, 3. Do you see black? 4, 5. What about the color orange? Is that one harder to find? 2, 3, 4, 5. Purple. 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can look to the thumbnail if you have your screens open to find these colors as well. So purple, 2, 3, 4, 5. And finally, let's say yellow or gold. 2, 3, 4, 5. And so after you've done a grounding exercise, when you're feeling a bit anxious, you should start to feel a little bit better. It should allow you to say, okay, I am centered in my body, I'm centered in time and space, and I can continue to move through whatever this thing is that I have to move through. So that's a grounding exercise versus the square breathing or other kind of breathing exercise. So I'm going to go to the next slide and let's see. Transition. Okay, so first I want to do a couple of shout outs. Church Nelly, we're glad that you are feeling better, and we're going to continue to pray and send good thoughts your way as you continue to heal. And I came up with something new called the Student of the Day. And today, Idalina is going to be our inaugural recipient of the Student of the Day. She left me a message and let me know what she had been doing out there in those Sussex streets. And she's really been doing the work as far as countering negativity. And so I just wanted to shout her out really, really quickly. So thank you, Idalina, for doing all of that work out there that helps the Duchess and helps the squad. Joyce Anderson, good Sunday afternoon to you and everyone. So there's been a lot of stuff in the news, right? There's been a lot of stuff in the news. So I want to start our episode today with our song of the day. So our song of the day is an oldie but goodie, right? I think we've had a few oldies but goodies, maybe mostly. So our song of the day is The Greatest Love of All. And Whitney Houston sang that. I believe Nina Simone may have written it. I'm not 100% on that. This powerful anthem speaks to the strength and resilience that Harry and Meghan have shown in the face of adversity. It is a reminder to love ourselves despite the challenges we face. Have you guys heard the song? Because the greatest, right? I am not singing well today. But anyway, Whitney Houston, if you're not familiar with that song, check out our song of the day. So I wanted to get into maybe a couple more shout outs. Let's see if there are. Hello. So when Meghan married Harry, She wasn't just joining the British royal family, but also she ended up stepping into a media storm. One of the most disturbing aspects of this media storm were the racist undertones in much of the coverage she received. From the notorious headline calling her straight out of Compton to the obsessive speculation about Archie's skin color, Meghan has faced an onslaught of racism. And just shout out to Compton, everybody. You guys know I'm into hip hop. And Kendrick Lamar was at Compton Community College yesterday or Friday at the graduation helping with the commencement speech. So yay, shout out to him. But racism affects both the mind and the body. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit today. Psychologically, it can lead to anxiety, depression, a constant state of stress. And physically, it can cause issues like hypertension, heart disease, and other stress-related ailments. Meghan and Harry have openly discussed the toll that this has taken on them, making their advocacy for mental health all the more poignant. So we just wanted to shout that out, and talk about how racism doesn't just, it's not just something that's out there in the world and it doesn't cause any harm. It can literally kill you, right? When you are dealing with this kind of trauma, and especially when it's piled on. We also understand suicidal ideation that our Duchess experienced, and we see what the tabloids are doing. Hopefully they're not anywhere near those things. No, Latundo, I'm sorry I missed this. Everyone on the platform. Okay, so yeah, hello. So yeah, Meghan has been dealing with this, and it can, from the least that it does for the typical person is cause, a lot of microaggressions cause us to feel harmed. We feel often scared, we feel anxious, and it can lead to depression. And in the worst cases, it can lead to high blood pressure and suicidal ideation and worse. We see kiddos in the news, and I'm not going to get too specific about kiddos who actually ended up unaliving themselves as a result of dealing with these things. And I'm talking about babies. I'm not even talking about tweens. I'm talking about little fellas. And so, we understand that Meghan went through it and they left, right? So she said, bye, Felicia, to the UK, and was probably hopeful that she'd be saying bye, Felicia, to the tabloids, but they were not going to let their cash money, I'm not going to say that other word, go. So, like I said, it affects us physiologically, psychologically, and can lead to a lot of things, right? So let's talk about a little bit more insight. So I wanted to talk to you about a podcast that happened quite a while ago with respect to Meghan and Harry that talked about a lot of the things that they were dealing with. And this was on NPR, and it was with Max Foster, who's a royal correspondent, and CNN host discussed some early on racist attacks that Meghan was facing. So I'm just going to read a little bit of this. The Duchess of Sussex, Garcia Navarro, says, the Duchess of Sussex, previously known when she was an actress as Meghan, has been dealing with a lot since she joined the royal family, including persistent racist and sexist attacks in both the media and online. CNN investigated those attacks and found some really interesting stuff. And we have Max here to discuss this, right? So then we have Foster. Hi, Lulu. Thanks for having me. So Garcia. Now there are a number of things here, but let's start with the media tabloids, right? So they get into talking about specifically what was happening in the media tabloids. There's certain articles that really upset both Meghan and Harry early on, even before they were married. For example, the comment piece in the Daily Fail, allegedly, which talked about her rich and exotic DNA. We all know about the straight out of Compton. She's from LA, and we know a lot about a lot of the other things. Well, I mean, rich and exotic. So Navarro says, I mean, rich and exotic could be perceived as coded language. Well, I don't perceive it as coded. I perceive it as what I think it is. They are straight out of the racist playbook, allegedly. It is when you point to a neighborhood that you think is notorious to say this about a person, and then you do all of these other things that has happened. And then even remember, we're going to get into this too. Early on, when Meghan was making friends with Prince Harry's friends, she was experiencing a lot of things too. So there was a conversation that she was having, and it became clear that a lot of Harry's friends were making fun of people from diverse backgrounds with respect to disabilities, the trans community, and other things. So Meghan talked back to the friends, and during that time that she talked back, it was clear that it seemed to be clear, allegedly, that she was not going to fit into these groups where people are sitting around talking bad about people and putting themselves above other people. Our Duchess just wasn't going to have it. And so imagine being initially put into these spaces where these friend groups, the one that had the wedding this past weekend, and you're expected to attend, why would she want to go? When you understand that you don't necessarily fit in for a lot of reasons, race allegedly being one of them, but you also don't fit in because you don't vibe with people who just sit around talking trash about the disabled and people, talking about issues of gender and feminism. And I would imagine, and I do imagine, that it was more than just that. I'm sure that even though they didn't say the quiet part out loud, if they're so comfortable having these conversations around these other marginalized groups, what do you think she thought they were saying about her when she wasn't around? I think she thought that they were saying, the things that they say. Connie Palmer, hello, hello, hello. Yeah, so we understand, let me speak for myself. When I go into a new space and let's say I start a new job and there are people there and they're sitting around talking about a marginalized group, let's say, I'm going to make up a name. Let's say this group is called the Greenies, right? They're sitting around and they're like, oh, those Greenies this, oh, those Greenies that, oh, those Greenies the other, right? And you're like, wait a second, you don't even know me like that. And so you are comfortable, this group is comfortable talking about the Greenies this, the Greenies that, the Greenies are, the Greenies don't, the Greenies can't, the Greenies, saying all these adjectives to describe the Greenies that are stereotypical and pretty disgusting. And so what's your choice? You have a choice in that moment. You can either, and you have a couple of choices, right? So what do we think that we end up doing often? Some people sit there and they're like, oh, I'm at the Mean Girls table, I'm going to participate. And that can also be wearing on you emotionally. And then for some people, it's like, I'm just going to be silent. And for some people, I'm going to speak up. And it seems like that's what our Duchess did. She's like, no, not today. I'm not going to sit here and let you think that I'm comfortable speaking about these other groups. And also the thing that you didn't say, I understand that you're not just talking about them, you're talking about me too. And you're trying to drag me into this and I'm not going to participate. And so there's this whole hoopla over this wedding that Harry was supposed to go to, or that, not that he was supposed to go to, that he didn't attend, and he gave his reasons, and he spoke, I'm sure, privately with his friend. And so they're going to make this whole uproar around this, him not attending a wedding that everybody knew he wasn't going to in the first place. And also that there are these people here that allegedly the Duchess is not necessarily completely comfortable being around people who sit around and talk smack about people, right? So she had when she was faced with that choice of, do I shut up, and sit silently, do I engage and I become a mean girl, which is outside of my comfort zone, or do I speak back to the people who are saying these mean things? And so her decision, it seems like, was, I'm going to talk back, right? I'm going to speak back to these people. And so what is happening now in the news? All of this stuff about this wedding and, oh, they didn't attend this wedding. And it's all over the tabloids. And it's all over. What I don't get, too, is that it's not just staying in the tabloids. These things are going mainstream. I never thought that mainstream American news would start talking like this, talking this ish about Meghan. I'm like, wait a second. What happened to the people who were talking back and talking back? And so that's one reason for the student of the day, right? Because it is hard work out here in these streets talking back to these different networks and channels and things of that nature. And so when I hear that someone said I did this much, it just makes me feel really good because we understand that that work is hard. And so, yeah, she got out here in the streets and she did that. So, wonderful, wonderful. But yeah, how would you feel though after, and how, I know I've had a lot of experience with people saying inappropriate things to me and thinking that I was going to be comfortable talking about or talking back to, these talking about. And so, like, I'm sorry. And so what I have had to do in the past is, like, in the moment, what Meghan did, and that also can be like very trying. Just because you're able to confront somebody in the moment doesn't mean that you're going to end up being completely comfortable with it. And if you had to confront them then, when you have the prospect in front of you of going to sit in this space, remember Maya Angelou said, I might not remember what you said, but I remember the way you made me feel. And so why would she want to go back there if people in these spaces made her feel this way? I know I absolutely would not want to go back if people in these spaces made me feel like I wasn't wanted. And also, I know you talking about me too in the moments that you're not sitting around, when you're not with me. Because if you're so comfortable saying this about her, if you're so comfortable saying this about him, if you're so comfortable saying this about them, then what are you saying about me? And then for the people in the group, what are you saying about him and her and her and them? And so, yes, our Duchess, initially from the beginning, she had to put her big girl pants on and talk back to the wealthiest, some of the most wealthy, influential people. And also they were all her baby, her sweetheart, her honey's friends. And so what does that feel like? Babe, for me, it'd be like, babe, had a conversation with your friends and it didn't go so well. And, now I'm feeling like this. Am I putting your friendship at risk? For some of us, like, that's happened to me before, that I've had to speak back to a partner's friends before, like, and he was, like, it can be uncomfortable when it's business people or whatever. So, yeah, so initially she had to talk back to another kind of trolling group of people that's not the BM, if you will. And so, she had to be brave. But that's also exhausting to always feel like you have to always be on. And so what did she do? She left, right? And what did they do? They follow, they follow, they follow. And any and everything they do, whether it's positive or negative, they find a way to spin it. Let's see if there are any comments. Oh, that's just you guys talking to each other. Yeah, so it is exhausting. And I can sit here and tell you, like, I'm a former teacher and I have had 4 teachers use the N-word in front of me and they found a reason. And I'm just like, okay, here we go, right? Here we go again. And I'm like, what do I have? A sign on me that says, it's okay to do this? And of course, I had to take a deep breath and say the thing that I had to say. And it is wearing on your spirit. Like, I gotta do this again, like, for real, for real. And so anyway, I feel like maybe I understand a bit of what, even though that word wasn't used, there were likely some undertones. And so, in this interview, they get to more of that conversation after the DNA and the Straight Outta Compton stuff. And it is, it's like, wait, what? This is what we're doing? So, yeah, let me get to the next slide. So, how are you guys doing out there in the chat? Let's see. Marshall, it's hard being green, but everyone wants to be like us. What else? Yeah, it is hard. I mean, how many of us grew up with Sesame Street? It's not easy being green, right? And at the same time, Kermit was the smartest dude in the room, right? He was always wise and he always had something to say and he was always bringing it on Sesame Street. And he was doing this for, babies. And even babies know how to share. Even, like, we teach them. If you look at episodes of the kiddos shows, they always have a blurb, a thesis, or about what the episode is going to be about. So we're teaching the kids how to play together, how to share. I was punished for 12 hours, couldn't comment. Oh no, I don't know. What could you have said, Connie? I don't understand that. YouTube is on one a lot. You are not the first one who said that. That is wild. What in the world? Is somebody like, I don't know what's happening with the company. I know every time I get on, I see new rules and new this and new that, and it is exhausting, and I don't understand what is happening. But apparently they're doing some moderating of themselves. I don't know what you could have said. I don't recall anything, Connie, that you would have said. You know, yeah, so I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm so sorry that happened to you. And so, like Marshar said too, it's not easy being green. It is not easy being green. And when you're in the Sussex squad, I don't know what shade we are, but when I look at magazines, like it seems like Town and Country for me does one of the best jobs out there of putting articles, and the Independent does a good job often with putting articles out there that are positive about Meghan and Harry, or Harry and Meghan. And it is just like, what? But on this side, Yahoo is a complete cesspool. I haven't really liked them for a while. When I was back in college and they started, I was like, okay, Yahoo. But now, no, Yahoo's allegedly has turned into a kind of cesspool, and everything that's on there is pretty trash. And so it makes it really hard to engage and to look for, because it was easy to get a quick blurb or whatever from them. And so again, we wanted to shout out to Church Nelly. We understand that you're doing much better, that you're out here in these streets and you're on a lot of podcasts, and that's wonderful. We want to make sure that we remind you gently to be gentle with yourself and make sure you're taking care of yourself, and I'm sure you are, and that we're thinking of you and we're continuing to pray for you. And I'll just say again, Idalina is our student of the day. If you want to send me a shout out or a comment, in any way, I will consider you next time. Hopefully somebody does. But the amount of work that she says she put in, I was like, what? You're out here like that, doing that, and talking back. And so I just think it's wonderful. Yeah, shout out to Church Nelly. She has been like a faithful in this community, doing so much of this hard work. And again, we just want to shout her out and say that, good job, Church Nelly. And make sure you're also, again, taking care of yourself. So I have a bunch of stuff. So we understand, we understand too that, well, remember back in the day, again, with respect to that interview that I was reading to you guys about the BBC thing and with NPR, that interview that the neo-Nazi group in the UK, and that all of that stuff that was happening with respect to our Duchess. So we can't, this is what Foster says. I mean, we can't go into too much detail because it's an ongoing investigation, but their fear is certainly that this type of trolling can lead to a permissive environment. Someone carried out a violent threat, and that's what they're most concerned about right now, and they don't want to give them any sort of platform. So, I mean, that's when it goes from like trolling to becoming extremely dangerous. And so I want to just talk a little bit about the Prince Harry, the fact that he won his appeal, allowing his case against the British tabloid to move forward. And I think that victory is pretty significant in holding the press accountable for their relentless and harmful coverage. So, we did an episode the other day about the trolls that are out there, and that episode talked about these trolls ain't loyal, right? They don't care. They want to just, they've got their victim, they've got the person that they think they can make money off of, and that's what they're doing, and their choice happens to be our fave. And so the fact that we're out here doing this work in these streets and making sure that she's not just a target for them, she's not just a person for them to make money off of, right? So we're going to transition. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, okay, so here's more of the R word, the racist stuff. According to, and see if you guys remember this. According to a biography titled Meghan, Harry, and the War Between the Windsors by Tom Bauer, yay, our fave, Meghan confronted Prince Harry's friends over their use of the sexist and transphobic jokes, right? And they also talked about disabled people. The book describes an event at Sandringham in 2016 where Harry's friends, many from Eton, his school, used offensive language, and Meghan called them out without hesitation. And again, like the amount of like what that feels like to have to call people out, or to feel like you have to call people out, can be very trying. So I went to a source to help explain, or help me like explain to you what this makes me feel. You guys remember the hip hop artist Houdini, or the group Friends? How many of us have them? Friends. Ones we can depend on. Friends. Before we go any further, let's be friends, right? So Houdini did this whole, and it's a pretty extended rap song. I don't know what year that was. It was 19 something, I'm sure. But yeah, they did this rap song around friends. And so what happens when you have a partner and you're in love with that partner, and you get invited to a wedding, and your partner has had some challenges around not only your friendship group, or some people in your friendship group allegedly, but with the whole dang country, like, and no, not exactly the whole country, with the media that represents in their minds the whole country. And so she understands that if she goes to a wedding, then she is going to be fodder for the tabloids. And then if you, whether you go or not, you're going to be fodder, whether you, I'm going, I'm not going. And then when you make the decision not to go, then here you go, having to listen to and deal with all this, stuff. But I think what they've done is to just lean into the thing that they've decided they're going to do anyway. They're going to live, they're going to love, they're going to laugh, and they're going to be a family. So regardless to whether the people, the friends from Eton who went to the wedding, where everyone, where not everyone, where lots of people were not too taken with the dress, not the dress, well, parts of the dress and the shoes of the bride. Like I've heard that dress get, at least the front, like, oh, it looks like a this, oh, the back is pretty, but oh. And so imagine, Meghan couldn't win if she went to the wedding. Harry couldn't win. It would be divorce rumors allegedly if Harry showed up without Meghan. And if Harry showed up with Meghan, Meghan would be, she would take up so much space that she would be blamed for existing. And so I think they made the best choice that's possible for them by saying, you know what, we're not going to do that. Shout out to somebody from, Elizabeth, shouts out to you too. So yeah, these are some of the things that have been happening. And I just really think though, this thing about friends and getting back to, understanding and remembering that it is the relationship that Meghan and Harry have with each other that is allowing them to thrive in this moment. And so it is that greatest love of all. And I think that we can have a kind of greatest love of all for multiple people. So, we have our greatest familial love for our parents, our siblings, our kiddos, even our pets and friends. And then we have a love of friendship that feels like the greatest when we have strong bonds around friendships. We have our partners and former partners that we have a certain kind of specific bond with and have a kind of greatest love. And for people who, for a lot of people, most significantly with their higher power, spirit, God, they also have that greatest love of all. So, you had that. And so Harry, when he married his wife, he had to choose the greatest love of all for his partner with Meghan. Because when he married her, he understood that she wasn't just marrying into the British royal family, but he started to see her step into that media storm. And we remember that statement that Harry put out, the statement that was recently taken down. Like, talk about petty boots, like talk about petty Betty. They take down a letter that was also teaching people that this is not what we do. This letter was teaching people that they should, be kind. And this is what happens when you take on one of ours. This is what we do to fight back. But what did they do? No, no, no. We can't have something like that on the website around, Princess Duchess Meghan. Take that down. And so what happens to them, though, also as a result, is they get looked upon as petty. More news comes out about them taking that down. And it's another look that's saying, really, y'all, this is who y'all are? Okay, we see you. We see you. We see, what Meghan says is not in doubt with the squad. And even when the tabloid puts their garbage out there, the tabloids put their garbage out there, it is in doubt. Though, we don't call it BM, the poop emoji. I mean, the British media for nothing, right? And so, yeah, these things have been happening, and we've talked a little bit about the effects of these things on the body, the effects of these things on the mind. And so what do we do when these things happen? The people in the squad, we go out here and we do the work that of Christopher Boozy, the stuff that he talks about in Bot Sentinel, right? We go out here and we use our receipts to talk back, to speak back to the media. We use our receipts to speak back to, whether it's media on, Twitter. I will never call it the letter that he named it. Shout out to Malcolm. Whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on some blog site or some website, some news site, we're always like talking back to them, because we cannot allow their narratives that are untrue to go unchallenged. And also, we've gotten stories corrected by CNN and other agencies when they've gotten it wrong. And some squaddies have even gotten shout outs on major news sites based on them trying to find the leader of the Sussex squad. So, yeah, these are some of the things that are happening. So we saw Harry's friends and some of the controversies around that. When we have to deal with homophobic slurs, or we have to deal with racist slurs, or we have to deal with insensitive jokes, or mocking, sexism, anti-immigrant rhetoric, body shaming, cultural insensitivity, privileged arrogance, and on and on and on, what happens to our bodies? What happens when we are out here in these streets? Hello, everybody. I don't understand. We celebrate the Duchess Meghan, strong woman, mom, daughter, friend who has endured the cesspool. We absolutely do. And, we celebrate Prince Harry for being a real one also, right? We celebrate Prince Harry for being a real one. When his wife was like, dude, your friends, I'm not saying she said they were trash, right? I ain't saying she's saying that you don't really have none that are like, that I can vibe with, but, and also like people who are born and who exist in these privileged spaces often have to do work. And it's not that they don't understand the real world in quotation marks. I think that, it depends on how your upbringing, and it also depends on who you are as a person to how we exist in this space. Are we going to be the people who are saying, racist things, sexist things, mocking things about, marginalized groups when they have no, and I'm not even going to say when someone has something that looks like a disability. I think the deaf community has done a phenomenal job saying, nah, we are a community, and we don't see it as a disability to be, to not be able to hear, right? I don't think the sighted or unsighted community has done as good of a job, but I think like people who don't have hearing, they don't mess around in their community. They love, and even when their kiddos are born, there's also this conversation around cochlear implants. Because when you don't see something as a disability and you say, I'm going to do this thing, my kiddo's not going to get a hearing aid implant, that you're at least saying, I acknowledge and love who I am. And I know there's controversy around people's choice and kiddos not having a choice and it being like best implanted at a certain time. What I'm speaking to is the fact that they are saying you will not make me disabled. You will not tell me that I'm less than. And they do everything they can to prop up their community. And I think they do a really brilliant job with their just the whole way they do that, right? So, um, yeah. So when we think about homophobic slurs, so I'm just going to talk about some of the controversies that have happened, right? So it's no secret that Prince Harry's circle of friends, how many of us have them, in the UK have had their share of controversies. Here are 10 notable examples. Homophobic slurs. Several of Harry's friends have been caught using derogatory terms for the LGBTQ plus community. And I allegedly believe that. I'm sure that they don't stay limited to that community. Insensitive jokes. Harry's friends have been the people that they wanted Meghan and Harry to attend this wedding have a history or have been caught, if you will, saying, making jokes, mocking people with disabilities. Casual use of racist slurs. What do you think those slurs look like, guys, out there that of Harry's friends for the wedding that he missed, right? Um, we celebrate Duchess Meghan, the strong woman, mom, daughter, friend who has endured the UK cesspool media and all detractors. We do. We celebrate them, and we celebrate you too. We celebrate you guys for talking back to these trolls. We celebrate you for keeping receipts. We celebrate you for doing all the work that you do. And I know that the Duchess, I'm going to say no. I know that the Duchess has heard a lot of your names out here in these Sussex Squad streets. Whether it's like when she's tempted to look at these blog sites and she sees whatever your screen name is, whether she hears a blogger or someone else say it, if you have your own podcast and you say, or even on this one when we shout people out, it happens, right? So, can I get an I am Meghan Markle in the chat for her and everything that she has done and everything that she's endured and for not, succumbing to the pressure even to go to that wedding? Can I get a I am Meghan Markle? Maybe I'll type it myself too. Haven't heard that today. Trying to do two things at once. Yeah, so just again, Harry's friends and their controversies, homophobic slurs, mocking individuals, insensitive jokes, making fun of people with disabilities. And when we have people in our families and people that we love often and people that we know, or we're just a caring individual, we don't want to hear that, right? And then casual use of racist slurs. We've heard those slurs before, lots of us, right? Classist. Is that a surprise? That some of Harry's friends have allegedly been known as using demeaning people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. Well, when you're in the 1%, if you're in the 1%, dang, like it's like y'all versus everybody, right? Because yeah, we are all poor, even if we're billionaires, and I am nowhere close to, like, you'd have to subtract like 11 zeros for me to be a billionaire, right? But demeaning people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, objectifying women, ooh, right? Anti-immigrant rhetoric. Marsha's talking about that dress. Wait, but it was an ode to Elvis allegedly. Blue suede shoes. How does that song go? Don't you step on my blue suede shoes? I don't see it. Thank you. Oh, that's me saying I am Meghan Markle that just came up. I'm saying thank you to Professor Zinzi. Hilarious. Not. So yeah, I heard that, like a lot of people, I hear that a lot of people don't like the dress and the shoes, and they think that the shoes are particularly ugly. And it, I think, I think she was trying to do a kind of, let me see, Carolyn Bessette Kennedy combined with Duchess Meghan combined with, I don't know what, like it was sort of like, it looked like a silk, and it looked like Yeah, it looked like it was trying to be simple, like the Carolyn Bessette Kennedy dress. It looked like it was trying to, shout out Meghan a little bit, and then it did look like an older fashioned dress. Is that wrong? Like kind of old fashioned vintage. Is vintage okay? It looked like a vintage kind. It looks like she tried to put too many things together that did not necessarily work well, and perhaps she didn't consider the day of the week. Thank you, Marsha. She didn't consider like the weather that was going to be happening. So I don't know. I didn't see her change into a dress. I didn't watch the wedding that was apparently streamed. And yeah, she must have had an idea in her head. And so like, I wonder what percentage of people who saw the dress actually liked it. So let me read your complete quote, Marsha. That wedding dress was a hot mess, and the blue suede shoes were awful. I could have dressed her better by going to a thrift resale store. Billions without taste is a waste of money. I think this is the. I think that's their vibe. Like, I have no idea. I mean, I know what I see and I know what I like, but it looks like it was like trying to shout out grandma a little bit or great grandma. It looked like it was very vintage. So something you would have seen in not even The Godfather, but I'm trying to think of a movie that I saw wedding dress. They have usually really beautiful lace in the vintage Italian wedding dresses. I don't know, like I'm trying to cape for her, and I sound like I'm being cap, right? Um, let's see. Marshar says, "I am Meghan Markle. Yay, I am Marshar. If Meghan saw my comments and talked to me, she'd laugh, wag her finger, and say naughty, naughty." And you know what? She would definitely have a lot of great joy because yes, when somebody stands up, and I say this a lot, but who will stand and carry the flag? Like, we are all carrying these flags when we're doing all this work out here in these streets. And I know Megan probably, right? Megan probably gets some joy about, like, around people saying, as in as much as she's she's human, let me say that. And so when she's being attacked, I know she can see and hear some of the stuff that gets said, and the clapbacks that come are absolutely real. Like, Marshall, she said that thing, right? And so I imagine that Duchess Megan is out here in these streets when she's seeing comments. She's like, yes, I wish I could say that publicly, but because I'm sure we communicate the way she often feels allegedly out here. Because what else are you to feel when someone's attacking you than to want to say something back? And I know I often say, like, I'm sad for the person they are. And most of the time I am. I'm sad that they have to be a person that moves that way with just like so much hate. And at the same time, like a good clapback, some good shade is still some good shade, right? So I can still see that. Um, hello, Mary Man, right? And so Prince Harry, so the insensitive jokes, right? The racist remarks, the sexist remarks, the anti-immigrant rhetoric, the body shaming. My, can you imagine like a lot of these gatherings with, the extreme wealthy, like the people who have extreme wealth, and conversations around people who don't fit into a certain body type. And it can be around their weight, it can be even around the shape of their body, right? So for people who have, for them, a different kind, like if you hail and you've got booty, for example, they can be looking and mocking at the same time, and doing a whole lot of other things. So that body shaming based on weight and or appearance, that happens or has been allegedly talked about with respect to some of Prince Harry's friends. So imagine not really wanting to engage in that, and then going to a wedding where most of that is or a lot of that's happening. And then cultural insensitivity. So his friends have been allegedly accused of disparaging remarks about different cultures and traditions. And how many of y'all remember that wedding that William went to that we can't find any pictures of? But we saw that theme and it was a long time ago. I'm not going to get into it at all. But yeah, we understand and we've seen that ourselves. So, what would happen if instead of us talking about like their cult, what happened if people started to be, and I'm not encouraging this, but what would it look like if people were culturally insensitive to them, right? And they started mocking the way, that we see, people in, like how they look physically in the press, if you will, like when someone starts to lose their hair, for example, if there was a whole mocking campaign around that, or again, I'm not encouraging it, but I don't think it would be pretty. And then privileged arrogance, general attitudes reflecting a lack of awareness or a lack of caring around their the way they speak. So those things. And then so yeah, I mean, I would really like to see, is that bad, guys? That's bad. Should I even say that? It would really be interesting to see um somebody do a ball based on privileged people. Like, what would that look like if there was a real close examination, and people dressed up as, for example, in homage, if you will, or not, of Camilla, allegedly, or they dressed up as King Charles. What would that look like? What would they do to their noses? What would they do to their cheeks? What would they, if they were made their features look exaggerated to look more like them, that wouldn't be comfortable for them, I'm sure. And so when they do that to other people, they experience the same feeling, right? So, yeah, Mary. Hey, go taste and see. Greetings. Yeah, so so when you are doing these things that are distasteful and unkind, imagine when you do this, somebody can always do it back to you. And so, again, imagine like Prince Charles or King Charles looking like he looks himself on his worst day, or on one of the days where his complexion's pretty red, and he's maybe a little bit sweaty, his nose is looking a little bit like he has a cold, his cheeks look like they have a lot of rouge, even though that's the natural state of him being. Then, for example, when that happens, imagine people making a commercial out of it, right? Who wants to see that? Like, I mean, not even who wants to see that. Do you think that they would want, or like looking like Camilla on any day? If people made Camilla's face as it exists today, she's not a young woman, as a costume, like how would they feel about that? And so when you look at like these friends who are mocking people who look differently, who have different body types, who hail from different cultures, turnabout is turnabout fair play in that case? Is turnabout fair play when Prince Harry is, with respect to Prince Harry's friends? I don't know. I mean, it's not something that I would want to do, but I can imagine that it could be pretty successful. Like, we're going to dress up like King Charles. We're going to dress up like QE2. I think that that would be seen as pretty disrespectful, but I still don't know if dressing up as King Charles, that would be a pretty interesting costume. Have you guys ever seen, and I'm going to show my age. When I was little, I used to watch this show at night called Madam's Place. Oh, Madam's Place. If you guys have ever seen Madam's Place, can you let us know? Put a one in the chat. Madam's Place was wild. It was as bad as Benny Hill. Right, TV that we were not supposed to be watching. It came on late at night, and we would just be like, even with our cousins, a whole bunch of us, like, and Madam was a mess. So Madam's Place, and I would say that, like, to me, when I think of exaggerating the features of King Charles and Camilla, that they might have a puppet that looks a bit allegedly like that, right? And then, so again, and Benny Hill, like, imagine a Benny Hill skit doing something like the king. That wouldn't be cool. So again, like, the fact that our Duchess corrected and said, hey, don't talk about disabled people. Hey, please, I'm not here for you talking about, people and the way they identify, or their disability. That's not cool. So from the beginning, when that happened, it was like, getting reported in the news as if it's something negative. Like, no, like, and who wants to be around your friends if that's what's happening? Mary says, let's see. Willie checked his stalker into the Hotel California. Ooh, oh boy. No comment. Yes, but yeah, like when I think about, has anybody seen Benny Hill or Madam's Place? Those shows that used to come on in the U.S. at least late at night, and kids were not supposed to be watching them. It was pretty like for us. It was like woo. And my mother didn't allow it, but if we happened to be staying up late at night, we might catch that those shows. And Benny Hill, when he passed away, I was heartbroken. Like I used to love the Benny Hill show, ridiculous. But again, like imagine parodies. So when they're making jokes about people with who look like a certain way, who have a disability, who whatever the challenge is that that person is living with, if you will. Now turn it around and put it talk about somebody's mama, like oh well yeah, that's how like Black Americans, and it's gotten translated to other spaces. Thank you, Nick Cannon. Not with Wildin' Out, right? About how people play the dozens, if you will, and make these jokes on the sly. Lamar Sher says, "Oh my God, more people with with that face would be a horror. All of that deep, ooh, yeah, it's." But with that costume, see, and I'm being like messy boots a little bit today. Would that costume sell out? And would you allow somebody to like come in your space if they decided to? Because yeah, so when they're out here like wilding out in these streets talking trash about, these other and how did they get their wealth anyway? Like did it come from the backs of these poor people that you're laughing at, like that are not in the 1%? So again, we know that Duchess Meghan, when she talked back, then there was like this, oh, she can't be one of us. But she knew, even though they didn't, like we said, even though they didn't say the quiet part out loud that time, she understood that if you can easily make jokes about disabled people, let's get to the real jokes. What is it you really want to say? Like, and are these the jokes that you tell, or are you telling some other ones when I'm not around? Because again, like when I'm in certain groups and I hear people talking about certain groups in a certain kind of way, I'm like, hey, wait a minute. Like I said, Spanky, again, I'm aging myself, Little Rascals, when he's being pulled. I wonder if I could find that clip and show you guys, because I just cried. And he's like, hey, goat, hold it. Hey, goat, hold it. The goat is pulling him. I think it's a goat or the donkey. Maybe it's a donkey. It's pulling him around and around in circles. And you might not even know who Spanky is, but shout out to Spanky, right? Hey, goat, hold it. But yeah, like, so like, what? And for those of us who are not 25 or 35 or even 45, like we will get to a certain point, and like we are all on, most of us on that other side, like we're closer to the end than we are to the beginning. So, and they will be too soon. This thing doesn't last long as far as I'm concerned. And so we will all get to be disabled people if we live long enough, right? If you live to be 120, if you live to be 125, most likely you're going to lose a lot of your sight. You're going to lose some hearing. Your ability to walk is going to be, it's going to be different then. The way you walk, the way you talk, the way, all of these things. So my mom used to tell me, get old enough. And I know, like, yeah, I know what that feels like as I age too, right? So yeah, so Megan, and so when she's talking back to them, can you imagine, like, whether it's the talking back inside of that circle? She thinks she's better than us. She didn't go along with that, and then it gets in the press. Somebody thought it was a good idea. So anyway, so despite the negativity that Harry and Meghan continue to face, they push forward with their charitable endeavors and their advocacy, their commitment to social justice issues, including supporting people of marginalized communities and fighting against racism with their NAACP award, has been unwavering, right? So we see it out here in these Sussex streets, and we see like them advocating for mental health in all kinds of ways. And we also see like that they have to face these challenges. And Prince Harry, despite his friends, how many of us have them, right? Houdini friends. Prince Harry has remained steadfast in his support for his wife. They have both used their platforms to advocate for causes close to their heart, including mental health awareness, like I said, and racial equality. And Harry's legal victories against these media practices are not just personal wins, but are significant, not just for them, but for future generations, right? And, and then we always have to have a talk about these BM trolls, right? Don't we love that? The BM trolls. I think I might make some merch with some BM trolls on it, with the poop emoji for seventh graders, if you will. Um, so yeah, so they're talking back constantly to these people and these trolls. So we saw again, I'm gonna bring it up, guys. I'm gonna bring it up because one of the greatest, again, I'm just gonna get a quick laugh in. One of the greatest moments in 2024, thank you, Cat Williams, has been Angela Levin getting talked back to, like, and called, or yeah, that a troll, if you will, in so many words. I was just like, what in the world? He just said Angela. Huh? Did you see the look on her face when he did that, right? So, no discussion about the Sussexes would be complete without addressing the trolls, be it the online trolling, the BM, or British media trolls. They've been relentless. They've spread so much misinformation, they fuel hatred, and they create a toxic online environment. Yet, despite this, Harry and Meghan have found their voices and continue their work inspiring many people around the world, including, us squatties, right? Because they have a kind of greatest love of all. Shout out to Nina Simone and shout out to Whitney Houston. If you don't know that song, again, that's our song of the day. Go and take a listen because, like, like, she sings that song, Whitney Houston does. And it is such a powerful, powerful song, right? It makes me feel so good when I hear it, and I haven't heard it in a while. Until when I started working on this episode, I'm like, hey, song of the day, let's make it Whitney Houston's The Greatest Love of All, right? So, let me see what you guys are saying. Did I see something about Benny Hill? I remember watching the old reruns of yes, yes. You think her costume would sell out? The Benny Hill, I mean, Benny Hill. Yes, yes. The old reruns of Benny Hill. Benny Hill was one of the funniest. And, at the same time, the stuff that they do to our Duchess is just so not funny. Like, she can't win. Like, if you've seen The Wiz, you know that song Michael Jackson sings it, you can win. Right? That will never be our theme song with respect to the Duchess. But yeah, because with respect to, though, what happens in the British media, they can't win. Like, they can be relentless and we are going to speak back. They can be cruel and we are going to speak back. They can be maligning and this stuff is going to be here and people are going to be speaking about them. So they're having a legacy. You know, like Hamilton said, planting seeds in a garden that you won't get to see. We see it right now, but we haven't seen the complete fruition of what it's going to become. So in 20 years or 30 years or 40 years, I know when I'm no longer here, what is the legacy of the BM, right? Is it that funky smell? Or is it that they go down or as journalists with integrity? I don't see that now. I see it as that whole pile of, what you guys say, well, not you guys say, that horses produce, if you will. But bump, right? But bump. Is that how it goes? Yeah, so I see it that way. And they have a choice and they would rather sell newspapers. They would rather get clicks. And when I say newspapers, I mean like even the online stuff. When you're not purchasing directly, you're purchasing with your clicks. They're getting paid based on off of tearing people down based on the clicks that we give to these sites. And so, yeah, we don't want to do that. very often, because we see what it's done to our Duchess. And we know a certain part of it, like it is racism. It is racism. It is racism. It is racism. And from the beginning, like we talked about, the coverage of Duchess Meghan being called again straight out of Compton, and you say that like you think it's an insult, like you have no idea about these communities. Just like, like the foods that African Americans and I'm sure other people around the world used to eat, and they were specific to them. Like when you actually taste some chicken wings, right? And those were the discarded parts of meat. When you actually taste them, if you ain't never had no collard greens and cornbread and sweet potato pie and gumbo and jumbo shrimp, gumbo and dirty rice and whatever those things are, like if you ain't never had it, yes, I remember being a young person and having people say ignorant things to me about Black American food. And I'm like, yeah, you're dumb enough to think that's an insult. Like, you don't know what it's like to mix white potatoes with peas and beans and whatever these fat beans are called. And like my grandmother used to make a kind of gumbo out of even her vegetables. She would put different kinds of beans and peas together. And I don't mean the French word for okra, right? Like gumbo. I mean, like my grandmother would make a kind of stew out of green beans, and you're dumb enough to think it's an insult. You have never experienced euphoria with respect to food. I would say if you ain't never had like Black American food cooked a certain way. You don't know what it's like to eat fried chicken, collard greens, cornbread, potato salad, like a little of this, a little, like, and then end with some banana pudding or sweet potato pie or no, peach cobbler. Oh, yes. And so, we can imagine Harry's friends sitting around saying really ignorant things about, the these different marginalized people, and then our Duchess again having to be like, dang, dude, babe, I had to say something to your friends. Now I have a headache, allegedly. Like, what happens to us in our bodies when we have to speak back to trolls? And this is what we do in this space. And at the same time, we come together and we have fellowship. We have made a community out of the work that we do, right? We are the Sussex Squad. We are the Sussex Squad because we were basically, not even basically, we were people who came together for a common purpose, and I would say even ordained by God in a lot of ways, to speak back to people who were being cruel to a woman for existing. She existed, and she's not in the 1%. So she's financially disabled. She's got, her bum is not shaped like ours, right? Like whatever it is that you guys, and like we've always said, that when she shows up and she's freaking brilliant and she thinks, like Toni Morrison said, I want you to work. The James Baldwin taught her to work and think at the top of your form. To have and hear an interview with the Duchess of Sussex is to level up your game mentally. You cannot listen to her speak on anything without leveling up. This is who she is. She will level up. She will level you up about a salad. She will level you up. I saw her cooking on the Today Show. I think once it was a shrimp and like inside of salad greens. And I'm like, dang, I gotta make that, right? She will level you up with respect to your lifestyle, with respect to your language, with respect to doing good things in community, advocating, issues of women, issues of the body, motherhood, daughterhood. And let's not leave out the black wife effect. Look how I should go back and if I can find that slideshow on the black wife effect. Look how she leveled Prince Harry up with respect to like how he was looking. You see slide 1 and Harry's looking, you guys see that haircut on this picture that's on the screen right now, right? He's just all like pressed and starched because he's going somewhere fancy. But we know what Harry was looking like out here in these streets before he and Meghan got together. We know that Prince Harry was, walking around. His hair was half done. Let's see if this is it. His hair was half done. His clothes were not pressed. maybe this is the one. I'm going to try and transition and see if this is the right slideshow. Oh, it's not. Oh, wait, is the other one on? Hold on 1 second. Let me turn that one off. I don't know. This might be the one. This might not be, but I'm going to try and see if this is got the black wife effect on it. But, yeah, we saw how Prince Harry was out here looking in these streets before his wife. And then we saw how Prince Harry was looking after he married Meghan. Like, that was real. This is not wanting to act right now. Cancel. So, you know, his hair was different. I don't know why I can't. Let me try it again. Nope, it's not gonna work right now. I don't know if I have to reload it or what, but for whatever reason, it's just anyway. So when we look at Harry and we saw his haircut, it was like it just looked like he jumped out of the shower or he just jumped out of bed. He had bedhead often walking around in the streets, and he had his clothes were unkempt. You know, we understand like his shoes. He didn't have the budget for his shoe wardrobe. He just didn't. He didn't look like he was loved. And then when he got with our Duchess, you know, so you see him just looking unloved. And then you see him get with Meghan, and then his whole fit changes. Like he goes from having like unkempt hair to having a kind of fade. Like he goes to having like his hair to going to being the sexiest man alive. Like Harry is out here looking like a whole, and I always say hot butter biscuit. Like a whole hot butter biscuit. Like he could be a model for GQ. We see him on the horse doing polo and all of that stuff. So let's see what I missed. Let's see. Out of horror show attractions, I plan to do a special Unroyals horror display for my home. Is that Marshar showing natural pics of Chuck and as they exist today? This must be where the unconscious bias is bred and nurtures. Yeah, nurture. I agree. I definitely think that the unconscious bias that Harry talked about happened in these spaces, because how do you justify? And we see it. Like we see it if you have experienced any kind of marginalization or racism or misogyny or xenophobia personally, like for being a foreigner, for being a person of, you know, that is considered a minority group. It's a similar thing, right? It is that bias that happens, and people use these biases often to justify living and existing the way they do. And the sad part is that a lot of it's getting better, right? A lot of the xenophobia, I mean, compared to what it was, and then simultaneously we see it getting worse in certain ways. So I would say, like, with the candidacy of certain presidents, and it doesn't seem like it stays in this country. It has traveled around the world, a lot of it. And I see that even with the Duchess. Like, I'm like, dang, American tabloids, I guess they want some of this money too, because we understand that newspapers are not doing the best. So yeah, Harry talked about unconscious bias, and a lot of us were like, that's just racism, described as a more comfortable word, if you will, because, you know, unconscious bias, it feels like a softer word. You've never heard of Madam's Place, Mary Man? Oh, she was a puppet. She was a puppet that was very thin, and it was like a show that came on at night. So, like, it was a show for parents. And she might have had a negligee on. If any of you remember, like, seeing Madam's Place, maybe I'll write it down and try to remember to put up a slide of Madam's Place. But she was this puppet. You know who she reminded me of? Joan Rivers. She looked a little bit, in my mind, you know, she looked a little bit like Joan Rivers, an exaggerated version of. But she talked about these topics that kids were not supposed to be listening to, I think. It's been so long. It's been like 100 years. But she used to talk about like adult topics at night. And I think, you know, we were supposed to be in bed like 9. So I think she came on like after the news. So maybe 11:30 at night. If anybody remembers Madam, can somebody describe what Madam's Place was like? So she came on late, and yeah, she was like talking to our parents. And Yeah, she was funny, 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 funny. Like, just in the way kind of that Benny Hill was funny and inappropriate for kids in a lot of ways. I don't know if they showed Benny Hill like during the day, but it came on in the US, at least in Ohio where I was born and raised for most of my young adult life. It came on at like 11:32, I think, or midnight. So you had to watch it on maybe a Friday night or Saturday or sometime when parents were in bed and you just were allowed to stay up and watch TV. But yeah, Madam's Place, definitely. I think she had on the negligee. I think she smoked too. Tell me if I'm wrong in the chat. Was Madam she might have been like a cigarette smoker. She out here with her negligee talking about adult topics, and we didn't have like the internet like this. We couldn't just like get on and find out stuff. So like that was our kind of introduction to adult topics, like, ooh, turn the TV down, you don't want mom to wake up or whatever and hear us watching Madam's Place, or even we weren't even allowed to watch Benny Hill. Meghan will never win with those people, Marshar says, but what I personally find offensive is when other black women attack her and say she isn't black. That goes back to the jealousy of slavery amongst slaves. Tell us what you really think, Marshar. She'll never win. I'm going to read it again. Meghan will never win with those people, but what I personally find offensive is when other black women attack her and say she isn't black. That goes back to the jealousy of slavery amongst slaves. And I think, yeah, like people who were, in some of our families were mixed. It was not necessarily their mother's choice that they had children with the owner or with whoever was in power. It could be the overseer, it could be the cousin, and they had no choice about doing anything with their bodies. So that you imagine that, I mean, like, these scars run too deep. If you imagine not being in control of your body and imagine other people having like a say over who does what with your body, that is just, it's unimaginable to think about having a child who is a boy or a girl, because they didn't limit their desires to, and I'm not going to say too much, but they didn't limit themselves to only little, this person, and age didn't matter either. So, and there was no place to go really to get a kind of repair, right? So there's never been in this country a kind of repair around what happened in our families. And then there is a glorifying, or has been, and you see colorism all around the world, right? So when you have a glorification of certain features and people can't help it, so yeah, it can be jealousy. And also I think it's a kind of I'm sorry, my phone fell. I think it's a kind of, radicalization. I think that what these tabloids have done, starting in the UK, starting after all the jealousy around that Australia trip, then when we started to see these things really pop up, I mean, originally you would see it with like the old school royalists, if you will, allegedly. And then that shifted to, it's okay to target her. Oh, she sells lots of newspapers, to spaces like a Yahoo, where I think it's just, like I said, allegedly Yahoo's trash. And whenever I accidentally type, I'm like, oh, I'm in this cesspool again, and I don't mean to be. Because again, it's triggering psychologically for me to read these things that they say, and you're just like, oh, Meghan breathed, okay, a thing happened, and then it gets turned into, like, how do they win? If Harry goes to the wedding, I mean, they win by winning, because they're winning. All we do is win, 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 right? They're winning right now in their own lives. They are making their lives. They are doing it in spite of the things that have happened. Yeah, and they have refused to be silenced and to be silent. You are absolutely right. Go Taste and See says Benny Hill was a movement. Go Taste and See, tell us about a Benny Hill memory in the chat if you can. Like Benny Hill, and if you remember a Madam's Place and what that was like. Antoinette Kennedy, hello. Yeah, so they have been out here and they've been refusing to be silent or silenced. Thank you for saying that. Because, and it happens to a lot of us, right? In our workspaces, in our wherever, in restaurants, like we can be slighted, like things can happen, and you're just like, our friends or people, our colleagues might say, hey, no, it's okay. And sometimes you're like, no, I got time. Sometimes you're just like, no, I got time today because I'm over the gaslighting, right? And that's what let me go back a little bit. That's what our I don't know if probably a bunch of you got it. But this thumbnail that I created today, this was really about the gaslighting that happens with our Duchess. All she does is all day, and don't speak about it. Even with respect to herself, her kids, her mama, all of them. And she is to blame for the whole world being whatever it is right now. It's Meghan's fault. I remember when President Obama was president, it's Obama's fault. Everything's Obama's fault. And a lot of the things that I see happen to Meghan happened to Michelle. A lot of things that I see happening to Meghan happened to President Barack Obama. She gets all the trash. Happened to Hillary Clinton. Like, she's just the target. She is just the target. Marshall says, you don't know Madam's place. Oh, your parents probably were better than mine. Your parents were probably more cognizant about TVs and stuff like that. Because when my mom was asleep, she was asleep. So, even though we turned it down because we didn't want to risk it. But yes. But yeah, so Meghan has been out here, facing and dealing with all of this hate that has been put on her, like Hillary Clinton. Like, imagine take every single person who's hated in the world. Remember the cookbook. Meghan is, the terrorism angle with the cookbook, right? The Grenfell Towers fire, that she's out here with these women, lots of them are Muslim. Oh yeah, she's doing a cookbook with people aligned with terrorists. You're like, what? And then who shows up at the Grenfell Tower? Her brother-in-law and sister-in-law. Oh, did they get that kind of coverage? No, she's making a kitchen and a community so people whose houses have burned can eat and can make money and all. Like, what? And you are saying that they are somehow related to terrorism? You know what? Nelson Mandela was a member of the ANC, and he was considered a terrorist. Martin Luther King was considered a terrorist. So you know what? Maybe that should be a badge of honor if that's the case. Because if you're aligning people with in order to make your point and you have to do that, you need to mirror yourself. Probably you should go and take a look in the mirror, because while she's out here trying to do good work and to help people, what gets reported in the BM? Not the fact that she's out here helping people. What gets reported in the BM is quite literally that, right? It is that stinky poo. It is that, all that funk, like, can we shout out Parliament? Can we shout out Roger Troutman? Like, we like funk, like people from Ohio, people from like born in that area, the East Coast, like, yes, they were just like getting funky with it. But they were doing this to a person, and they were causing great harm to people that she was trying to have a charity book for, and people that she's trying to help with, like, all of these things. And so what do you see? Like, how can I find 10 degrees of separation or make up some ish in order to malign her? Even back then, you're like, dang, you can't win. Michael Jackson, right? You can't win. You cannot win. You cannot win. And so when you know you can't win, even by existing, you better just try to win with yourself. You better try to win with your mama. You better try to win with your children. And that's exactly what's happened. She wins with the squad. She wins with the squad. And, every day. So YouTube, I think it has to do with the 1,000 subscribers now. I'm sorry. I don't know about Madam's Place. Was the puppet the same as Waylon Jennings and Madam? Madam was a puppet who had, yes. She did. So Waylon Jennings and Madam? I didn't know anything. I don't remember Waylon Jennings. I just remember Madam's Place might have been a spinoff. After that was Waylon Jennings and Madam. Maybe. But yeah, Madam was like a puppet. Did she have like exaggerated features on her face? And then you see like the cigarette, and she's smoking, which is like, You know, when kids are like most adults, when they were smoking, when I was a kid, the kids had to leave the room unless I guess their parents were like just smokers all the time. But yeah, kids didn't when they got there, especially, or if they had, my mom, I think, remember her drinking maybe 2 or 3 times in my life. Like, Mom, please, can you have a glass of wine? Girl, if you don't get out of here. Because she was like, when she drank, like, I remember the 2 or 3 times that she had wine, she was so different and laid back. And she wasn't, like my mother was type A all day, all the way. I had a friend in college. Our house was so clean. And my mother was so, like, uptight about it that one time my friend, I'm going to say her name, Stacy. Stacy was at our house and we were leaving, and Stacy was like, you know what? I bet your mama throws my lint out the door off my coat when I leave. And I was like, what? Mama throws the lint that I leave off my coat out the door. I'm like, oh man. I told my mom. My mom was like, oh, my mom got a bit upset with Stacy. She didn't like Stacey saying that, but I was just like, "Ma, Stacey said," because of course I gotta go and like stir the British media. I've got to go stir the British media. So Mom was like, "What'd you say? What? We'll tell Stacey she don't have to come over to my house." I was like, "Mom." It's a compliment. She thinks you're clean, but my mother would be on one about cleaning. You'd be like, look, lady, hang up your coat, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, so you're dealing with Meghan and Harry have been dealing with this garbage coming from all different sides. And when you have a person in your life who is so formed, who's so well formed, like Meghan, if you will, like she is not only like formed with respect to her own, like the way she parents, the way she loves on her husband, the way she is as a daughter, how she, with her work that she's been doing for years and years and years and years. So when she's working in Argentina, when she's in Nigeria working with girls, when she has her favorite charities and she's out here buying, and helping to get feminine products for girls in India, she is cognizant, and she understands the girls all over the world who have their monthly visitor don't often have the equipment that they need, the products they need to be able to go to school. And so for 5 days a month, these girls are missing school often because they don't have feminine products. And so what does she do? She supports this charity and different charities like it with the understanding that this is going to have a big impact. And if this girl can go to school today and for the rest of the year, they're going to get a scholarship, they're going to learn some certain things. And not only that, when the squad hears about the work that Meghan does, wait, I almost didn't something like the cookbook because it had Willie and Kate's names on it first and all, but I got it anyway because it was Meghan's project and the proceeds went to help. Yes, like how they tried to take that allegedly, I was mad. I'm like, you know what? When they're reporting on Meghan, it's terrorism. And when you're reporting on them, it's something else. That is disgusting. It was her idea. It was her project. She worked with a lot of women, a lot of Muslim women, and this is what you do. But then the coverage that you give of them, who ain't had nothing to do with it. Oh, she got positive press. Oh, because all we can really give is, what did they say? Oh, when we come, we can give a smile and a handshake. What? That's because your imagination allegedly is so small. That's because when you look at these people, when you look at people from certain socioeconomics, and you feel this way, it shows. A handshake and pass the hand sanitizer? I don't think so. That's not what she thought. She didn't get none of that money from there. What she did was use her mind because she's brilliant, and she used her heart simultaneously, and they made beautiful, beautiful food together. I have the book right here. They made beautiful, beautiful food together. And every time somebody picks up that cookbook, they know who was the one. But you want to tie yourself to that. Why don't you tie yourself to some of the work it takes to do it and figure out your own charities? Because she out here emailing at 5 a.m., right? To get people fed, to make a lasting impact because kiddos need food to eat, because kiddos don't have a place to rest, and we're going to make this thing so that it can go on for future generations. She is going to have impact. Yes, Madam had exaggerated features. Waylon Jennings was the puppeteer of Madam. Okay. His act was around first. He did a Vegas act. I did not know that. Thank you, Marshar. I'm gonna have to look at. I should like to have a night tonight with just me and Madam, just like chilling, because absolutely I have not. And Benny Hill. Maybe I'll do it. Maybe we could do a squad marathon of Benny Hill. Because Benny Hill was amazing. I did not know. Okay, Waylon Jennings. Great, great. That's really wonderful to know. And yeah, our girl is out here like in these streets. Autocorrect keeps getting me. Yeah, I think that I don't know what's happening. YouTube is making a lot of changes. And have you guys noticed even with commercials, like when you're watching shows, that they are going on like for me, they're lasting 30 seconds. And I'm like, what is this? Like for almost every show I watch, they're like, and then like some of them like every 5 minutes, it's like another. So YouTube is doing some major changes apparently. But yeah, Waylon Jennings, I did not know he was a puppeteer. That brings a completely different, yeah, she had that long cigarette stick and she would be out here. I'm just like, oh my goodness. So for like a kid in, let's say an 11-year-old, that was one of the best things you could watch. And if you could watch Madam and Benny Hill, that was just, yeah, you were in heaven. Yes, yes, yes. So that's what I was saying, that I think that the puppets of the royal family might look like. I think that the families have like a certain type of feature, not puppets, the costumes. And so like when you're looking at these so-called 1% or families that have been around it for, let's say, 400 years, some of them, and they have a lot of intermarriage. You can marry your first cousin or second cousin, or you could not long ago. Then you're going to have a lot of the same kinds of features. So Callie Jen says, hi, it was Waylon Flowers and Madam. Waylon Jennings was a country singer. Waylon Flowers, okay, that puts another perspective on it. Thank you so much. Yeah, Madam was like a G, I'm gonna say it. Madam was a G. I wonder if she's on YouTube. Can anybody check to see if Madam is on YouTube anywhere, or if that is like, I don't know if that's, a thing, but yeah, I think today I'm gonna watch some Madam if it's on YouTube, and some Benny Hill too. I'm sure Benny Hill's on YouTube, and so those things. But but yeah, Meghan's out here doing this work, and so the Grenfell Tower, that like really, I think if I want to say an emotion, I was angry. If you've seen Pretty Woman, Richard Gere talking about, I did 10 years of therapy to be able to say I was angry with my father. I was angry with them allegedly showing up as if, like, what? And you're going to get but a whole lot of people, the people who knew, they knew. We knew whose initiative it was. And if they were like people who were really trying to help with the work, we wouldn't have cared. If it wasn't the same old song all around the world, same song as they do, any story about her has to be reported this way. Why don't y'all just keep her name out y'all mouth, right? Any story has to be, that they say about her, has to be done in a way that maligns her. Avocados much? Like, I mean, you can just go, and I don't anymore. You could go to any of these cesspool newspaper sites and you see it and you're like, really? Wow, it just, and to see that and to not recognize that the universe, that God, that whatever that thing is, wants you to speak back against that for a human being. Like, who is she really? You don't get to define her. And when they define the Grenfell Towers, then they want to define it now through a different lens. Hey, where them terrorists at now? They disappeared because you're not saying this about, those others. So again, when you have like Meghan, all of the things that she had to go through with respect to even starting out and his friends don't like you, well, because, and that's not to say everyone, but for the ones who are very comfortable sitting in their 1% space
and doing a lot of the stereotypical things, allegedly that we align with the 1% as looking down on people, because you've had a certain amount of wealth, that much of it was gained from taking the wealth of other places and other peoples, from carving up India or Africa, as the whole continent gets carved up, except Ethiopia, because, and then again, that's why so many African flags, my uncle told me, were made in the same colors, red, black, green, gold, because it was paying homage to Ethiopia, because people were ticked. And so after that, they were like, oh, we want to, like, when we are able to have a country, when we get this stuff back from Belgium, when we get it back from the Dutch, we're going to do something different, and we're going to make our flags all united. And so when you see African flags and they are red, black, green, gold, and some version of that, that is again, or even in Jamaica, when you see like there's this green, black, and gold, like it is this agreement that's silent, according to my uncle. And it wouldn't be that, like, Botswana's a little different, but South Africa, they had a new recent one and they incorporated blue, but like you see it in all the flags, or I do, right? um so Wayland Flowers, so yeah, so it is, she had to deal with, and has to today, but I think that the way that they're dealing with it now is just poetic, right? And when I think of poetry too, I think like of poetic justice, because the justice that comes to the people, we've seen even like the sad stories that have come out of the friends between William and, that some of William's friends, and the stories that have happened, but the poetic justice that's happened to like a lot of the media trolls, and how they're dismantled. We're only streaming on YouTube now. Go Taste and See says, I remember our principal making the announcement over the loudspeaker saying there will be no more penny healing. Smacking each other in the forehead. Oh, oh my god. Oh, no more penny healing. Oh man, I'm gonna have to make that a thing. Not by hitting hard, but like with Geron Coco. Yes, like make that a thing with the pop pop. No more Benny Hilling souls. All the kids at Go Taste to See watching Benny Hill, and Madam was a thing too. Yes, Madam was a hoot. The comedy back in the day was fun. It was so like, and that was our version of Salacious. That was our version of Salacious. No more Benny Hilling, and yeah, Madam's Place with her long, and she would be like, yeah. Anyway, it's just like giving me a kind of euphoria. Shout out to Kendrick Lamar. Just thinking about the times that I was able to, that I watched those shows with my cousins, and like we thought we were, we definitely were learning some things, but we thought we were being really really bad. Like, oh, did you see, what do you think that meant? Like, I had no idea of like a lot of the, because we were just kids, like, and when I say we were kids, like we were not out here, being like little adults like a lot of the kiddos are now. um let's see, Marsha, I'm going to read your complete quote now. The comedy back in the day was funny without being vulgar. It takes creative imagination to tell dirty jokes without actually saying the dirty words. Yes. Oh, Jennifer Clark says, your uncle is correct. His name is Uncle Fee, right? He passed away. Super smart dude. My Uncle Fee. We used to yeah. Anyway, your uncle is correct, Professor Zinzi. Our Jamaican flag pays homage to our African. I can't see the rest, and I'm thinking it says countries or something similar. So yeah, Jamaica. Like when you look at Ghana, look at the ones that are south of the Sahara, if you will. Look at the ones that are, or south of the ones that are sub-Saharan, as they, yeah, south of the Sahara. Those are the flags that are, and you see it in some other ones too. When I look at like the flags of other countries, even north of that, some of them look similar too. But it was apparently an agreement that was silent between those kind, and then Jamaica. And so it's so beautiful that they're like, nah, because my uncle talked about when Ethiopia, the Italians were going to Ethiopia, and he talked about wanting to go to war. People were really, really angry, like, no, if this is the only country in Africa, one of them that's not been colonized, you want to do this. It's kind of like what we do. It is. Wow, look at that. Look at how we like make these parallels. It's kind of like what we do. It's like, no, you don't get to do that to them. No, they are ours. They belong to us. We are protecting them out here in these Sussex Squad streets. We are protecting Meghan. We're protecting Harry. We're protecting the kiddos, Mama Doria, Princess Di. Because I mean, even the trash that they talk in the media about Princess Di. And I told some of you guys that I share a birthday with Princess Diana. So I feel particularly close to her. I think she's amazing. And yeah, so the stuff that they tell, like, my mother, the way this oldest son talks about his mother's mental health and all of that stuff, it is wild because they have an alliance with the royal, the so-called royals, to protect them at almost all cost. So even you will go after a person who's no longer with us, that you promised that you would always take care of her children. You promised that you would always, like hold her name. And look at all of the things. You guys even called a certain person a queen. I am like, what? I can't, because Diana is my birth sister, right? So my Uncle Fee was brilliant. He used to, again, like in my family, we have had always all these political conversations. And so when you're a kid, again, just like Madam's place, you're trying to sit around and be quiet and see what these adults are talking about. So you have your, not only your older cousins who are sometimes in the room, but then, beyond that, you have your moms, your aunties, your uncles, and then you have your grandparents, and sometimes your grandmother's brothers or sisters and their friends and cousins that are even their cousins will come by and have these political conversations. And the conversations that happened in my family often were around the events that were happening in the world. So my grandparents would be talking about whatever the current event was that was plaguing the Black community, if you will. And so, I remember just sitting around in corners listening and understanding that there was also a silent agreement that one day, that because I was allowed to sit in this space as long as I was quiet, and we'll get water for everybody, that get me some water. Hey, hey, get me some water. Like, really? Yeah. I was kidding. Really? You guys just wait like until a kid comes in the room and get me some water too. And bring me some, But anyway, there was a kind of silent agreement that we would also, because we were allowed to occasionally ask a question, right? And to pick up the flag, that we would also carry the flag around, whatever the flag was that needed to be carried. So when we were talking about even like President Obama's election was one of the last things that we were able to have conversations about, and the significance around that, and what happens if he doesn't get to this certain phase, and so that was a thing. And I see these parallels with a lot of these things, like from the Ethiopian flag to whatever, like, that people get marginalized around. And we see like why Meghan means so much is because we see ourselves in her. We see ourselves in, it doesn't matter what complexion, what your hue is. You understand that if you've been marginalized, they talk about you too. Unless you're getting patted on the head or something, like, I think if you're a pick me, then maybe not. But if, like, you understand that when people are saying, I think, allegedly, when people are making jokes about disabled people or people that they consider beneath them, what are they saying when you're not in the room? That's the question I always ask myself. And so, why I am aligned with the squad has a lot to do with all of these things, and just aligning myself with the Duchess, and also just being a good human being. Like, the universe don't ask a whole lot of us, does it? But when it does, like, when it asks for us to do something, like, we know it. And again, like Tina and Michelle, what they did for Meghan and Harry was they stood up and they said, we are going to form a squad. Like, I don't know how they came together exactly. But I remember when I discovered, it wasn't episode number 1 when I discovered them, but when I discovered them, it was like the world shifted. Like I was like, whoa, there are these people out here in the world who have not only the same viewpoint as me, but they like, Michelle was a firecracker. You know, she was a firecracker, and they made me feel like I was a part of something that was significant. And it was also that I was out here in these Twitter streets, mostly Twitter, and I was talking back to all these trolls that were coming for Meghan. And because when they were coming for Meghan, I felt like, wow, that's not fair. And again, we see it with the Grenfell Tower cookbook, and how the one group of family members is accepted and how the other group is maligned. And you know, that's cool, you know, if that's what y'all trying to do, but that's not, you know, that's not cool, because how come it's great when they do it, but when Meghan and Harry, or when Meghan does it, it's something else. And so, you know, we talked a bit about like how racism and how trauma from any of these kind of slights, you know, whether it's around disability, whether it's around like you don't have the latest, your mama can't buy you the latest, or whatever it is, affects both the mind and the body. Psychologically, it can lead to anxiety, depression, and a constant state of stress. You'll be being what we call hyper vigilant around a whole lot of things, and you will often be inside of your head ruminating. You can't turn your mind off. It's like, oh gosh, I can't. I know, you know, you're just like moving around in a state that is just so uncomfortable, right? And so it affects the mind and the body, leads to anxiety, depression, a constant state of stress, can lead to other things, right? And physically, like we said, it can cause issues like hypertension, heart disease, and other stress related ailments. And you know, we see in the work that they do, Harry and Meghan, we see the work that they do around mental health. They understand these things, and they've both been affected by Harry from a very young age. And how can the press do this to him? Because they're BM media, right? They're British media. That's how, allegedly. They saw this child. And what we saw, oh, poor baby, walking behind the coffin, right? But what we also saw was the look on that child's face. And we understood that that was a look of like trauma, like this kid is never going to be the same. And then there was a kind of promise that was made, that, and the promise was, you know, we will take care of him. But was the contract, as long as he don't marry, as long as he aligns with, as long as he continues being the spare in every single way, like when this baby's born to Diana, does she know? I don't think so, that he is going to be afflicted by all of these things. And so, yeah, when she passes, you know, after being chased by the media, allegedly, into a tunnel, right? And we will never allow this to happen to the lies. And then when there's a car chase in New York to get your story, so you can write a trash headline, allegedly, oh no, that didn't happen. Lies until the story's quiet. Then you come out with a retraction. Then you come out with a correction. Oh, actually, we do have video evidence. Oh, actually, we do have all this evidence. Oh, actually, we were wrong. No, you just wanted to be able to lie and say this thing didn't happen so that you could malign their characters and make people believe that they were liars when it's actually you, allegedly. Like, how do you do that? I think you knew. You cannot convince me that you didn't know that they were in real danger. You know, and so you put them at risk. I see Callie Jen says, Diana's memory is very much under the protection of many members of the squad, mine included. Absolutely. Yes. So, yeah, and all the time later, here they come. I cannot not quite read your comment, Marshar, but it's coming up, I think. But yeah, so you do all of these things, and now you see this sweet boy, and the sweet boy has a sweet boy of his own. Oh, but it's with that half caste, allegedly. It's with that, you know, that person who has exotic, if you look at our thumbnail, that person who has afro, that person who's straight out of Compton, that person, and that person with the blood, that person, all of these things. And enough, they said. Enough. You want us to leave. You have all this drama around us trying to help my wife get better when she's not feeling well. And you say we can't do an arrangement where we're half in, half out. I don't see nobody out here in these streets like anymore. Barely. I see Charles. I shouldn't say nobody. Let me be a bit more precise. I see Charles and his wife out there in the streets. And then I see people in France getting really offended around a certain protocol that doesn't really exist. Like, hey, like it's last time that I checked, Nipsey Hussle, right? Last time that I checked, who is she? Oh, she's the one that was the person you don't see in the Prince Charles or King Charles portrait. She's that appendage, allegedly, if you will. Like, well, who is she? Like, that part that's missing that's in that portrait. Oh, I get it. And so she goes from, having conversations on the phone with a married man, and there are 3 of us in this marriage, as Princess Diana says to Martin Bashir, to getting a whole title and being able to be offensive, and having even people in the US in the media here defending that. So Marshall says all these years later, someone in that palace is still threatened by her. Her face and fashions are still being used for profit. But the strangest thing is that some people are trying to disparage her. They are. Like, what? Because, when you have a real queen, right? When you have a real queen like Diana is, you can't compare. Because it shows, just like in Harry's glow up, the one that he got from the black wife effect, that Meghan was like, oh, babe. Now, and you look at him physically, and he looks different. He is glowing like a pregnant woman who's happy because he's loved. He did all of those things out here as a kiddo because he didn't have a mama. I'm going to experiment, smoke a little of this or whatever. And now we see him moving like a man who's loved. And then what do you see the tabloids say? Oh, every other week is divorce, right? Lies, allegedly. The BM has always targeted Harry his whole life, but it wasn't until he met and married Meghan is when the world took notice, me included. I never paid the royals any attention before Meg. Absolutely. I mean, she is the most Googled person on the planet most days. And what do they try to do? They try to do the same garbage that we've seen the playbook. We've talked about it before. And still they rise. They're out here in these streets doing good things for people. Invictus Games? Like, really? Invictus Games? How can you say, oh, Harry's better, he better come? Yeah, he came. And then when Meghan, you asked her not to come. For years, you don't want Meghan in the space. And when she doesn't show, then what? But we found out she was on that plane on her way to Nigeria. Why not? Go where you are loved. I don't remember what you said, but I do remember the way you made me feel. And if you make me feel like garbage, if you make me feel like SI, like I'm experiencing ideation and I don't want to exist anymore, you ain't got to worry about me coming around you. No, deuces. But now y'all got to come climb over fences and, do illegal things to come into our yards and to find our space where we are. When we move to Vancouver, when we move to Victoria, when we move to Tyler Perry's house in LA, and then we moved to Montecito. But see, those people in Montecito, they're in the 1% in a certain way in the United States. They ain't gonna put up with that. You're not gonna be coming around their neighborhoods doing that kind of garbage. Same in Doria's neighborhood. In Baldwin Hills, she is protected. That is a community that is protecting her, and they're not like, no, we don't need your money. We good. Go away. Get off my sidewalk. Get off my lawn. We're not poor. We don't, and even if we were, we're not. Look at our views. Look at our whatever. But, with average house is probably 2 million plus. No, you don't get to terrorize that woman. Go away. Callie says, I was so happy when he met Meghan. They seemed like a perfect match to me. And they were. They are soulmates. I see that too. I see it in every single thing they do. Like, you know, he is reaching for her hand. Like, babe, come on. Babe. He has to connect physically with her because it changes his energy, it changes his body, it changes everything when he if you've ever been able to connect with that person, or for some people, whoever it is, like if you've ever been able to have a kind of connection on a soul level, you know it when you see it, right? And it can be with your grandmommy, like I have for sure. Like my grandmommy, she was everything, is everything. And all I wanted to do was put my head on her outer thigh and have her tell me stories. You see that he is safe. He is loved. Those kids are glowing with their red hair. Like Archie looks like her a bit more, I think. Like I think he looks like more like his mama, and he is a mama's boy, I think, right? And Lily, oh, Harry's always daddy. I'm a dad. I'm a girl dad. I'm a girl dad. I don't know if you've seen those shirts out there that say girl dad. He is definitely a girl dad. He loves Archie. I'm not like, but yeah, when Lily, like, and a lot of fathers are that way, and a lot of mothers are that way. We know, like, oh, look how she is about her son. That's her boy, and but yeah, I'm sure there will be parents like my grandmother where everybody thinks they were the favorite, but I know I was, right? Because thank you so much, Joyce Anderson, for saying that. The squad is a very easy place to vibe in. And you know what? Like when I get tired of, and we look at the thumbnail on the screen, when we get tired of that crap about Compton, like what? And they say it about every neighborhood. It was said about Harlem. It's said about, like, you always have that place that you have to say, but you don't know what's going on in them houses. You have no idea. They produce us, right? Whatever neighborhood that is seen as a certain thing, you guys are only saying that because you don't know. Because if you knew what happened in our homes, if you knew how well we are loved, we have to be to come out in the world and do the things we do, right? Meghan is loving on those kids. They are glowing. They got that mom effect. She has that. You see how intentional she is with every, even like to the kid. I saw an article somewhere about how they were spoiling the kids. They had a cake that was probably the most expensive thing at the party was the cake. And it was going to be delicious and pretty. And then not too much else. They're not those parents who are going to be out here doing a Hollywood party. That's not who they are. They are valuing the time they spend with their kids. They're probably playing pin the tail on the donkey. And if the BM show up, maybe they could pose, right? Because can you imagine like having them show up and being able to pin the tail on with pins, because we understand what they've done to Meghan and Harry over the years, and we see the glow up that Meghan and Harry have. We see their love. We see how they are able to just move in a certain space in a certain way because of that love. And again, they're not spoiling. And I saw this whole, like I said, an article about Meghan and Harry and the glow up, not, I'm sorry, the over the top birthday. I'm like, lies, lies, lies. I wouldn't be surprised if Meghan this year made the cake. She is that kind of person. Like, baking banana bread, whatever it is, like it's going to be the kind of party that the kids are going to have. It's not going to be flashy. They're going to make lots of memories, and they're going to have lots of homemade things, and no fireworks, no like over the top big old bouncy houses. I imagine it's going to be a simple birthday that's going to have a few gifts, but lots and lots of love and lots of fun games that are old fashioned. Maybe some balloons, maybe like a balloon race, a sack race, who knows? But we understand her in a certain way, and we know that that's not who she is. Marshar isn't they're a Windsor grandson cousin, which is tall, handsome blonde who loves Nicki Minaj. Watch out, his current friend may give. That would be interesting. You'll have to find out more about that friend, and yeah, because like who wouldn't? Nicki could. I'm not even gonna get into Nicki and her husband, but like, uh, uh, her husband is an interesting fellow. I'll just say that. But yeah, like that effect that we see, and Harry, like when you see the tabloids, it's just like you guys are stupid, or like the kids will say, you guys are dumb, right? That's just dumb. We know they're not getting a divorce. Like, really, the way he's like always reaching for her, the way he is always like loved up on her, and the way they still, after 8 years, we're still vibing. Man, like to be in a relationship, it is it is a beautiful thing to watch. It is a beautiful thing to try and approximate in your own ways the kind of love that they share. And they have come through the storm, right? You see, and they've broken down and they've broken out of the palace because, they have broken out of the palace. And Harry has, if they were having issues, he probably, he'd be at Mama Doria's house and she'd be making him some chicken soup, some sweet potato pie, some collard greens, some cornbread, little macaroni and cheese, some banana pudding. Like, what? Yes. And Meghan knows those recipes that her grandmother made. And we've talked about, we know how much she loves and the way she loves because of the things that she's done. We know this. When her grandmama's a nurse, coming out of probably having parents and grandparents for sure that were enslaved. Meghan's grandmother, I'm sure, share her history of her parents and grandparents, her especially grandparents who were enslaved, right? And so she becomes a nurse, and her husband's and so then Meghan's mom, her husband's an antique dealer, right? Meghan's grandfather. So he out here not doing an ordinary thing for a black man raised around 1929 or born around that year. Then you have, Meghan's mom, who's a makeup artist and a social worker, and she's out here like literally going into war zones inside of people's homes and having to take away kiddos and to help parents be better parents. And like we've talked about before, that's dangerous work, going in people's homes. And then it is emotional work. You go and you take kiddos out of homes, and those kids don't want to go. Most of the time, they just want to be in their family. And they get their garbage bag or 2 or 3. And maybe if they're lucky, they get to be with a sibling if they have one. If they're lucky, most of the times the kiddos end up getting split up. So they don't even get to move into the same spaces as their siblings. And then they go in can you imagine going to sleep tonight in a stranger's home? This is the work that Mama Doria has done in her life. You go into strangers, and now these babies have to go into the homes of strangers. These are Meghan's ancestors. Well, her mom is alive, but her ancestors were caregivers. Her mom is a caregiver. And look how you can tell Meghan is a caregiver based on the way her mother raised her and the way she loves on her husband, the way she loves on those kiddos, the way she speaks when she's out here in these streets and she's asked and she shows up. She is always raising the level of dialogue in a space. She is always going to show up and show out. And what I mean by that colloquialism is that she gonna be dressed to the nines appropriately, not trying to outshine nobody, but she's gonna be dressed to the nines. She's gonna be making a statement with her fashion. Her fashion is likely going to relate to someone or something that has to do with the event. It's also going to be made in a certain way, made where it's cruelty free, all of these things. So, and whatever she does and however she shows up, she's showing up and she's teaching us. And she's teaching us by showing us how she exists, right? So in Montecito, they have, like, when you see the babies out in the garden and they're raising food, those babies are learning how to be little farmers. They're learning how to take care of themselves, take care of the earth, and have food that they can ingest that's going to make them feel better. And they don't have to spend, not even the spending financially, but like the amount of packaging will not go into a lot of their food because it's grown in their yard. Baby, can I remember that too, and I'm sure a lot of you do, babe. Can you go outside and get me a tomato from the garden? Go pick a couple of onions and bring them in here. Can you get, one of those peppers? Can you get, I was never like I didn't ever get like cabbage or collard greens, but I was permitted to go get the onions, especially spring onion, only spring onions, really. Spring onions, get a bell pepper, get some tomatoes out of the garden. Because my grandmother had one. And so and what she taught me also was to love the soil and to understand that the soil can feed you, right? And to understand that it's important to put the right things and to have the soil turned over. And so she's teaching these kiddos these things, that she's teaching the importance of work and gardening and feeding yourself. And we see it. She's passing these legacies down from her ancestors to her children even today. And, I don't know if Harry, I'm sure he enjoys it. And we also understand that that's not something that has been in his family. And so he's connecting with no shoes on. He's able to connect to the bare earth in a certain way while we see him walking around with no shoes on. And we see the kiddos just having a lovely day with the most basic things. When we saw Lily's first birthday, we saw that cake and we saw it wasn't a whole lot of other things there. It was like, oh, it was a very simplistic kind of lovely life because they were going to have a lovely day with their baby, and they were teaching them, this is what's important. Papa is important. Archie's papa, Archie's mama, Archie's grandma, Archie, Archie. All of us are important. We are the thing. We are the thing that we've been waiting for. We are the thing that you can come to when you want security, when you need love. And it is not the big old flashy thing that they're putting outside for their kiddos. It is, the other stuff. No wonder the Spencers are nothing like the Windsors. Thank goodness Harry is most definitely a Spencer. Yes, that's what his mama said, right? Harry is a Spencer. Harry is a Spencer. Yes, definitely. Harry is definitely a Spencer. Through and through. Imagine Harry waking up the next day in his own house next to his wife and thinking how his life has changed. I get how grateful he was in meeting Meg. He smiles all the time. He's happy. Absolutely. He is always like out there, cheeks hurting from too much joy. And that's why he's like, touch me, babe. Hold my hand. Like, I miss you. You're here next to me and I still miss you. Where are you? Come and touch me. I need your touch. Like, that is, yes. And when Harry talked about holding his mom's hand, right? So, and that whole ring, that thing that, the only reason he wanted the ring was that he remembered the way his mother's hand felt when that ring touched his hand, right? And so he didn't get it. He got it, but then he got like, oh, whoever gets married first, right? Yeah, we know who's gonna get married first, probably the oldest one. You get to have everything. Yeah, okay, but you don't get to approximate how it felt to hold your mama's hand all the time. And now he does that same gesture with his own children. Holding Archie's hand, holding Lily's hand, and understanding the importance of shoring up their emotions and loving and hugging, and nobody's going to squeeze their niece as a sign of affection during the most brutal things, when they don't pass a test, when they, when somebody breaks up with them or a friend gets mad at them at school. They're not going to get their knee squozen. They're going to get so much more. Babe, go get in bed. I'm going to bring you your dinner and I'm going to sit next to you in bed and we're going to watch cartoons until you feel better, and we're going to play snuggles, and we're going to, like, however they love on each other as a family, right? That is what they're going to get. Those kiddos. They're not going to get at the worst moment of their lives, darling boy. and get your mom's dead, however that's said, right? Your mom's dead, and let me squeeze your knee, and then what? What is a nightmare to me? Like, my mom is what? And you squeeze my knee and you go on about your business, right? I just, yeah, and you want him to come back to the UK for what? Leave that person who we see that shift in him, because it shifts us in our own ways, right? When we see in my own way, when I watch them just like holding hands and walking, man, I get so geeked up looking at pictures of Meghan and Harry. I just feel really like geeked up, like, oh, there's another one. Oh, it's a good one. Oh, this is one for the record books. Like, oh, I love this pic. I feel just like the kind of joy that I see on their faces. I feel that joy, like, and so, it's just such a beautiful thing to me to watch them. It is a joy being a part of the squad. It is a joy having been able to say, oh, okay, out of the huts of history, shame, Langston Hughes said. And, like, yeah, so out of all the pain, we got to exist in the squad. If it were not for the BM doing what they did to Meghan and Harry, then we wouldn't be a squad. So whatever they tried to do, I'm going to go forward and show you some more of the slides. We did our shout outs and stuff. But yeah, and we talked about Houdini, the friends. How many of us have them? If you guys know Houdini, can you say, can you put a 1 in the chat, please, if you know the group Houdini? This is a really old song. Ones we can depend on. Friends, before we go any further, let's be friends. So here's Harry with his friends. And just a bunch of rich kids, just like dressed in their morning suits or whatever. This is from Netflix, right? Him and his bros, they're all, I like these suits better. Maybe it's also that Netflix has really good camera people, because that photograph is, to me, very, very beautiful. Yes, we can feel his happiness and rejoice with him, and Meg, the derangers, feel it too, and that's why they're mad, absolutely. Like, why would joy make somebody mad? Like, what is it? Like, he didn't marry you, Angela? Like, was he really ever going to marry Angela? I don't think so, right? He was never gonna marry you, Angela. Like, say what you want to say. He wasn't gonna marry your niece or, whatever. Like, that was never gonna be a thing. You don't get to have him in that way. He has he has his person. And why not be glad? Why not experience great joy around seeing people who experience great joy? What is that impulse that you see people who are experiencing great joy and you want to bring everybody down because they're happy? Wow, that is some grade A bullpucky. Yeah, so we also understand that he won his right to appeal the rejection of the publicly funded security detail. I think was this from the Independent? We talked about the racism, and here's old girl, the OG herself, with her Blackamoor brooch on, hearkening back to the days of colonization, and that's what you want. You wearing black folks and dark and Indian people on your chest, lady, like, for real. Yeah, so that was, now you can't come to, they let her come to the wedding though, but, and then he celebrated, we saw that, the celebration of, we didn't get the actual pictures, and then this, I love Patrick McAdams hinting at a future cast reunion. How much would, like, we love, even if, we were talking about that the other day, I think, but even like Meghan reuniting with Suits for 1 or 2 episodes, because we want to know where they are now, what happened to them. I do. Like, I love them on, and look how pretty she is. Just like, almost no makeup and just looking so fresh faced and natural and just lovely, lovely, lovely. But yeah, he is her biggest supporter. He's always out there in those streets. Like, don't be surprised if you were like tweeting next to him, or if you were like in the comment section on Huffington Post or wherever it is you go, like to do your tweeting and your not tweeting, wherever you go to like talk back to the trolls. Patrick McAdams is probably out there doing the same thing. But they were such a cute couple, and we just love them on Suits. They were just like, it's not the number one show that's ever, for nothing. And I love them as a couple. So we're going to get ready to close down shop. I did want to go back over that one first, second, third slide for 1 second. It's just a here we go, the shout outs. So again, Church Nelly, I understand Church Nelly's doing better, that she's out here in these streets and she is on podcasts and stuff like that. And then Idalina, all the like 108 answers out here. I was just like, whoa, you're killing it. So yeah, guys, don't forget to do your homework. Get out here in these Sussex Squad streets and answer back to the, correct, let's say that, correct all of the misinformation if you feel like it, that you experience out here. And like make sure you're taking care of yourselves. Make sure that, when you're starting to feel overwhelmed, if you happen to, by any of the negative media that you see out here in these streets, take a break. Take a break from it. Take care of yourselves. Drink some water. Have a Benny Hill marathon. That would be fun if we did a squad Benny Hill marathon or something sometime. So anyway, as we go out and get ready to go back to our regular lives, I want to thank you guys all for showing up. I really, 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 really appreciate you. Make sure you like the page. That helps. That helps. That helps. So if you could click the like button, that would really, really help us. And if you haven't subscribed and you liked anything that you heard, please subscribe. And yeah, take care of yourselves this week. Anything else that I'm forgetting to say? Do your homework, take care of yourselves, and have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. This has been a really fun podcast today, and I hope I will see you guys all back here in these Sussex Squad streets again on the Sussex Studio Experience podcast. Thank you so much for showing up, guys, and you all take care. Before I go, I'm going to read Marsha's. Holding hands is a very close bonding thing between two people. We do everything with our hands, so hand holding connects us. Some people are uncomfortable with that kind of closeness, but others aren't. Clearly not. And if you are, you might want to check yourself before you wreck yourself. Because, yes, thank you for that, Marsha. Appreciate you as always. You take care too and have a wonderful rest of your day.